Hello, as we are ready to reveal, or at least you should know by now, who has been revealed for the championship week games coming up here prior to them in the college football FBS playoffs. These are the rankings. I have no idea what's going on, so let's check them out. Previous weeks, I knew what was happening, and I had all these nice little templates and really cool logos, and I don't have any of that stuff now because I have no idea what happened. So let's go ahead and check it out. And see what we have here. If you know the way I have been following the teams, and if you followed our poll on the Ourlads.com, you can check it out on the website, you can check it out on the YouTube channel, and definitely on Twitter, on X. You can check it out by logging on to our account. All of those links are in the description. We have our college poll that comes out every week. I know my poll, my individual one, wasn't presented, but I did have South Carolina, I believe, ranked 7th. That should give you an indication of where I believe South Carolina should be regarding these playoffs. Will they end up in the final rankings, or at least the rankings here today? I doubt it. That's because they lost to both Alabama and Ole Miss, two teams that they are fighting for spots. But hey, bottom line, I always think is who do you think is the better team? Who do you think is playing better? And I don't know how anybody can say South Carolina isn't that best team, and how they're not playing the best out of the three of them. But it's politics, whether they admit it or not. So I'm not expecting anything. Let's see exactly how this all unfolds.
Let's get right to it. Only a half hour to get it done. So let's look at number 25 as we give you the college football playoff rankings brought to you by AT&T. Memphis after quad air at number.
Let's see here. What do we got? Anything interesting? Army all the way down to 24. Now this is going to be interesting because what if Army beats Tulane and UNLV beats Boise? Well, I think what this is telling me is that, is it UNLV? Is it Tulane after losing last week? I don't know. Let's see. That's what strikes me here more than anything. Anything else here, I don't think matters.
Number 21, they have losses to number 1 Oregon and Penn State. We assume Oregon's going to be number 1 again. They're the only undefeated team in the country. Number 20, UNLV is going to play for a spot in the playoff against Boise State in the Mountain West Championship game. Barry Odom's team has won 10. They are up 2 spots to number 20. 19, Missouri Tigers could be important for resume builders. Clemson.
Now, what that means is it's pretty obvious, and that is that you're not going to see Tulane here, nor do they deserve to be in the top 25 to lose that last week. And the fact that UNLV is now ahead of Army, the answer, Fowler just said it. We have it. Is that there's no way UNLV is going to beat Boise and have Army go ahead of them with Tulane behind them. So there you go. It's pretty simple. UNLV will play Boise State for the right to represent the group of 5.
Winning in, no real shot at an at-large berth for Matt Campbell's Cyclones, so they'll have an opportunity against Arizona State. At number 15, there is Arizona State. So 15 versus 16, that tells you almost certainly it's going to be one team from the Big 12. Whoever wins it's in, no one else goes from that conference.
Also, seeing UNLV where they were, assuming Boise beats UNLV in the Mountain West title game in Boise, Idaho, their backyard on the blue turf, likely that Boise's looking at a first-round bye with the Big 12 champion starting as at least 15 or 16. So something of note there.
That would put them, and if they don't get into the top 12, put them at number 12. Now, here's that cluster of 3-loss SEC teams. We'll be looking for Miami.
Here we go. Not going to show highlights, so let's see. Where do we go here?
The spot of where the last team in and first team out. And at the
all right. So now I'm not too surprised where Arizona State is right now, but I will say this, and I'm looking forward to it. People are not taking Arizona State seriously, and they should. All right, because they're red hot right now. Their confidence is through the roof. They got a tough matchup at Iowa State. I think Arizona State has the best chance to be one of those surprise teams that make the Final Four. Not a championship team, just a surprise team. one of those like college basketball terms, a bracket buster, a Cinderella. That's your Cinderella right there. Iowa State they have two really good receivers, one elite receiver, but they don't have a running game. And that's what Iowa State, that's how Matt Campbell built those really good Iowa State programs on. It was a really good, powerful running game. I mean, you had David Montgomery, Breece Hall. I mean, what were they in the backfield for 5 years? The two of them. I mean, that's where Matt Campbell was at his best. I don't know if it was 5, but it might have been. They just don't have that right now. Instead, they've got a passing game. Now, the good thing is for them, I guess, is that they're in a dome, and that'll be helpful with the receivers because Arizona State, their weakness is gonna really fit Iowa State's strengths. Those two receivers. See, Arizona State has good safeties, corners. So Iowa State needs to take advantage of that. In a dome, they got their best chance to do it. But I just think Arizona State's just way too hot right now. I really, even though it's hard for me, I'm not even sure I'm going to take Arizona State because it is very hard for me to go against Matt Campbell in a dog roll like this. It just is. So I think if all things are equal, it's a pick 'em. I'm taking Arizona State. But in a dog roll, I don't know. It's just it's hard for me to go against Matt Campbell. I might do it, but it also might come back to haunt me. And then here you got Ole Miss behind Miami. Yeah, I don't know. These are two teams that really deserve to be out on the outs. Now, does this mean? I guess we'll listen. Does this mean Ole Miss is out now? They got no chance because neither team is playing. I guess that's what this means. And as much as I really would have preferred to see both of these teams win their last games and be in the playoffs, instead we got Alabama back, or potentially because I see South Carolina here. And who's the other team Alabama's trying to fight? Oh, Ole Miss. So we already have our answer, right? Okay. So who's the other? Oh, Georgia. But Georgia, they ended up in the championship game. You know how I feel about Georgia. But instead of teams like that, programs like that, Ohio State losing, and instead, come on, Miami, Ole Miss, you deserve to be on the outs. But I don't know. Ole Miss is just a better team than Miami. So I don't know. I don't know why they're behind them.
The moment after Miami lost at Syracuse,
and while Ole Miss has an outstanding
problem is head-to-head. Doris Sellers,
but they're sitting
head, most notably against Ole Miss.
I can see. I'd have to listen. So, you know what? It's not worth it.
This is 9-3. They beat South Carolina senseless in South Carolina's house. But both teams are sitting there at 9-3.
And while Ole Miss has an outstanding win against both Georgia and South Carolina, their strength of schedule is 31. So by some of the teams in front of them comparison, not quite as strong, knowing that they lost to some teams that aren't in the top 25, like Kentucky and LSU. And obviously, that third loss against Florida is the tough one for them to start.
We're still dealing with these.
So now this is where we're at the spot where the last team in and first team out. And at the moment, after Miami lost at Syracuse, no real great wins for the Canes this year.
Just needed to
weeks that they fall behind, likely Alabama at 11.
One thing all of these teams have proven is we look at number 11. Number 11 is Alabama, as we expected. Now, all of these teams have proven they can lose. They've proven they can lose to mediocre teams. There are disqualifying factors for all of them.
Yep.
So the question becomes, what did you do well enough to put you at the top of this stack? And look at it as
So Miami has what is the difference between Alabama, Mississippi, and why is Miami better than Ole Miss, but Alabama is better than Miami? What's that about? How does that work? What's the reasoning for that? If you're going to say, well, Miami only lost 2 and Ole Miss lost 3, well, Alabama lost 3. What makes and Ole Miss unfortunately did not play Alabama. We would have liked to have seen that. But Ole Miss did play Georgia and beat the hell out of them. I guess that didn't really count for much because it's Alabama, man. In a big game to decide whether or not they were going to have to need help to get in or not. Take care of it yourself. You couldn't not only beat Oklahoma, but you couldn't even make it close. And yet you're going to put that team in the playoffs.
Decipher it, because we're seeing these rankings when you do. That would make Alabama the last team in the field at the moment. Now, this might be important too. Boise State is number 10. They're in a win-and-end situation. If they lose, they are unlikely to make it. But the reason it's important here for a couple of reasons. One, because of the bye you mentioned. And also because there's another buffer ranking line. We haven't seen SMU yet. So should Clemson beat SMU, one would think that SMU would still be in pretty good shape to hold that last at-large spot, depending on how the game goes. Who's number 9? Indiana. So now we have another line before we see the Ponies. And Kurt Cignetti's team hammered.
Which is not great, but it's somewhere in the middle, and I think that's more salvageable.
You guys think that SMU is better than Indiana? Really? Okay.
For them.
It's almost dead in the middle.
Right,
Out of 134,
right.
It's all.
You do realize that they had 6 turnovers against Duke, and Duke went for 2 points. It is amazing how the 2-point conversion attempt has dictated the playoffs this year. Amazing. South Carolina failed against Alabama. The 2-point conversion nuttiness last week between Georgia and Georgia Tech. Texas A&M and Auburn. Really, yeah, I guess you could say that, because Texas A&M might actually still be there with only 2 losses. And SMU. Amazing. 6 turnovers. And Duke goes for 2. They didn't have to. SMU scored a touchdown, kicked the extra point. Duke scored a touchdown, did not. They went for 2, missed it. SMU, 6 turnovers, gets away from losing to Duke. That's why they're ahead of Indiana. Come on.
Almost right in the middle of the pack. 8. There's SMU. SMU has only 1 loss early in the season on the road against BYU. And the must.
No, it wasn't on the road. It was at home. So what about that? How does BYU think right now? Really? Why is BYU nowhere to be seen here? Well, they were way back there. Why, when they go to SMU and beat them? Why? Because they have 1 more loss? What the heck does that have to do with anything? Really, seriously. One loss. That's it. They beat SMU. I don't know what we're doing here. I really don't.
Things will play Clemson for the ACC championship. Win, obviously they're in and looking at a bye, and lose. And I would think with a couple of buffer teams between them, that they would get the last at-large bid or one of the last at-large bids.
I think they're in a really good spot. The only thing is you look at who they've now beaten. Duke, Louisville, same suspects as Miami. In Miami, it's being held against them in the second loss situation. Would it be held against SMU? Currently not a single win against a team that is currently ranked in the top 25 with the Ponies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is little doubt in my mind, even though I've been proven wrong here by trying to figure out what these guys are going to do. But if SMU loses the championship game to Clemson, it's just like the Big 12. It's Clemson is the only team from the Big 12. Well, I shouldn't say that, but because it could be interesting. But I know this one fact: SMU ain't getting in. I think the ACC only gets 1 team if Clemson beats SMU. If there is a second team, I think it'll be Miami. But honestly, I don't think they deserve a second team. I'm with South Carolina. So, heck, if you want to put Alabama in, put South Carolina in.
But if they win this week against Clemson, that would obviously punch their ticket, no doubt about it.
It's a fair point. And so it's probably really important how SMU plays on Saturday, too. At number 7, Tennessee slides up a spot. We'll look at the bracket momentarily. 4 spots.
It's still 2 wins against teams that are 11-1. I mean, you beat Indiana, who's sitting at 9, and they beat a team that's in front of them.
At number 5, the Georgia Bulldogs will have a couple of top 5 matchups in conference championship games. Georgia and Texas playing for the SEC crown. At number 4, the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Now remember, this is where we have to remember the bracketing rules. Notre Dame, no conference, as you know. The highest they can be seeded is 5.
What did you think about my video a week or two ago on Georgia? And then as a 20-point favorite against Georgia Tech, what happened in that one? And I had Georgia Tech in the money line, 7-1. I mean, the thing is this: as an analyst sitting here going over it, I'll feel a certain way, and I'll be angered by it, and I'll let you know why, like I did in that video. But I'm trying to make money here as a gambler, and let you know what I think you should do handicapping wise. I'm loving it. I'm loving that these phony teams are in this situation. Not again, I've said this before, not because I don't think they can win the championship, because all of these teams can, but because they'll be favored so much to do so. So I'll be able to take advantage of if and when, and most likely for me, it's when they slip up, I'll have a nice little juicy money line waiting. I almost got it with Georgia Tech. I'll have to settle for maybe the next time they play, even if they lose. And I do think they're going to lose. I think Texas is going to beat them.
So they can't get a first-round bye. The best scenario for the Fighting Irish is that they would be seeded 5th.
I think if I were Notre Dame, I'd feel really good. We're in, and 99% of the time, they're going to host a first-round game at their spot. So
game benefiting from Ohio State's stumble against Michigan.
And right now, those are the 2 teams that I would wager on to win the national championship right now, based on I like the way the odds are. And I also think they've got something that a lot of these other teams just don't have. They're they're really good at the line of scrimmage. And, Penn State's got a little bit more skill position talent. But, boy, that Notre Dame defense, secondary is just awesome. And that defense is so good. Of course, now you say, USC put up a ton of points. I don't look at it that way. It's West Coast. It's almost like they were toying with USC. That's why I never felt Notre Dame wasn't going to win that game. So I don't look at it that way. And I'm not saying that Notre Dame would shut out or hold any of these big-time teams to well below their season average. But I do think their defense is good, is really good, and will keep them in these games. And then it's up to, great players that maybe nobody knows about, like Jeremiah Love. I mean, that kid is going to be a bona fide superstar at the next level. They are just a very sound football team. I don't know if I can back Marcus Freeman as a championship football coach, but I just, again, it's the combination. I like the odds too. I like the fact, now I don't know what the odds are going to be in a week or two. We'll go over that when we make our final picks and all that, but knowing that I could have, say, Notre Dame and Penn State, like we said last week, at 10-1, I love that. I love that I could take both of them and just need one of them to come through.
Michigan at number 2, we presume will be the Texas Longhorns. It is Texas and Georgia in the top 20. To be in the quarterfinals, you have to win your conference championship. Texas, SMU, and Boise State first round buys. Arizona.
Now, I said this I do the Penn State postgame show on the Penn State YouTube channel, and talked about how, to the Penn State fans, that the best thing that could happen to Penn State, no matter what happens in this Big Ten championship game, is, and really they did have to lose, but is that they get the 4th seed, or the 5 seed. That is the preferable spot. Okay, so right now, what is that, Georgia, I guess? But that would be the spot. That's and I tell you right now, if Georgia gets the 5 spot and they get the preferable spot, it's going to freak me out. But that's the spot you want to get, because as much as I like Arizona State as a sleeper, I'm just being honest. I mean, you get to play Arizona State first with all their experience in this, and they haven't necessarily played, a juggernaut schedule, and then Boise State in the next round, or UNLV in the next round. Well, I'm not sure it would be UNLV, but it might be. I don't think so. So anyway, right now, the way it is, you would have Penn State, and that would be a really nice road. Not that playing SMU, matter of fact, that's fine too. I'm all right with that too. I just don't know who that number, what that spot would look like, because there's still going to be a lot of craziness that's going to take place, even though we are running out of time here.
State, the highest of the outside the top 12, but the 5th highest ranked champion. They get in automatically. They would play at Penn State. Ohio State would have a home game. Notre Dame and Georgia, under the current scenario, would play a home game.
All right, so I'm not even going to try to figure any of this stuff out. I'll let them do it. But this is exactly why I think this would work out perfectly for Penn State. I really do. See, I'm getting screwed up by the numbers they put in the rankings and then the seeds, and it's just bugging me out. So this is a perfect scenario for Penn State, in my mind.
And look at that potential for a third Georgia-Texas matchup.
All right. So, and then here, absolutely love the fact that I think it'd be great. Matter of fact, I would hope, because it's not going to happen, unfortunately, that this is exactly the way we're going to see the first round in the playoffs, because you get no immediate SEC versus SEC, Big Ten versus Big Ten. Nobody wants to see that. Love the fact that you're getting all sorts of different stuff, and the fact that you get a great matchup to start things off with Alabama, Notre Dame, those two programs in a playoff game in South Bend. I mean, come on, that would be totally awesome. And then the winner of that game gets SMU. So, yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I mean, but here's the thing nobody wants to see. Let's say Georgia, Indiana, Georgia beats them, and Georgia, Texas again. Nobody wants to see that, even though Indiana, Georgia, that's what I'm talking about. Money line.
If that were to be unveiled like this, Indiana at Georgia.
Anyway, so that's it. So there you go. But because this isn't going to be what's going to happen. All right, it's going to be some changes and all that kind of stuff. But this is, and I'm looking at my monitor over here, by the way. So this is how it's going to work out for the, or at least right now, heading into championship week. Now, I want to remind everybody, this is important. We have on here the Ourlads channel. We're going to be doing interviews. Matter of fact, I have an interview with Jed May. Does a great job recruiting the Bulldogs, the Georgia Bulldogs. So we're going to talk about the Bulldogs. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on recruiting, I'll tell you that much right now. But obviously, we're going to talk about the matchup this week against Texas. And I just admitted I'm taking Texas. And then we're also going to have Phil Kornblut, who has been with the South Carolina Sports Talk radio network forever, I think 34, 35 years ever. And he's going to come on and we're going to talk about the Clemson matchup with SMU. So that's coming up later in the week. And I'm going to try and hook up, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to talk a little bit about Penn State. We're going to get on someone that has followed the Penn State program all season and for years. So we'll talk about Penn State next week, and I'll try to see if I can get a few. Matter of fact, Kevin Newton will be on next week to help me talk about Ohio State. So those are some of the interviews that I have lined up, and I'm going to try to go back to Kyle Kelly. I told him I'd come back to him for the playoffs. So we'll talk to Kyle Kelly again, and then maybe in a few weeks, Rob Mosley will be back to talk about Oregon. So we're going to have a lot of these interviews here on the Ourlads football channel. We also want to recommend, I do have a link in the description for a channel I work with, Proline TV. We've got a lot of handicapping going on that channel. We do some handicapping here on Ourlads, but there's everything handicapping-wise is on Proline TV. And I'm going to be breaking down a lot of these games with some awesome handicappers in the industry, guys who are professionals. They've got tons of programming on these games in the NFL, and especially, of course, college football this week. So check that out. And yeah, we'll be back again next week when we have a for real, not a projected, not a this is how it is now, but a for real 12-team playoff bracket. The brackets will be released. I believe it's going to be on Sunday before the NFL games at 1 o'clock. That's going to be coming up in just a few days. So I am going to be ready to talk about that on Sunday. So I'm not, matter of fact, maybe we'll do it live, but it's going to be definitely Sunday, right either during or just after the brackets are released on Sunday. I'm going to post a video. Matter of fact, I'm going to do just what I did here. I'm not going to know what's going on. I'm going to do my best to watch. And as a matter of fact, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to watch live, record it as it's happening. This way, you'll get my initial reaction to everything that's going on as it's happening. Even though, unfortunately, I can't fast forward But yeah, we're going to do that. And I just hope they don't do any highlights and stuff. They can do that. I can still screw around with it because I don't want them getting claimed. The video will get claimed with the highlights. That's why I do that. But we'll be back on Sunday for the final bracket. I've been waiting for this for as long as I can remember as a college football fan. And we are just days away from our first true playoff bracket in college football. Can't wait. We'll be here on the Ourlads Football Network to let you know all about it. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and order that Ourlads Insider. Link in the description. Video on the trailer of the channel if you want to find out more about it. If you're an Ourlads guy, if you're a depth chart guy, if you're a transaction guy because of fantasy, gambling, and whatnot, you can't do without the Ourlads Insider. Check it out. It's only $25 a year. Great deal. And you also don't have to worry about ads. You don't have to worry about an ad blocker because the Ourlads Insider comes with it. So that's going to wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.